Hello, welcome to the EIC's Meet the Experts webcast. This is our first episode and hopefully to be a series of webcasts that we're going to be producing over the next few months. They are designed to assist our UK Pavilion exhibitors and also our EIC members in navigating what's becoming a more and more challenging world in terms of COVID, and obviously now a hot topic of Brexit coming into January 2021. So my name is Pamela Nicholson. I am the Senior Overseas Events Manager at the Energy Industries Council. I've probably dealt with quite a few of you listening to this webcast today, and if not, my email address is at the bottom there, so if you'd like to get in touch to discuss anything just about today or about Pavilion and exhibitions and overseas delegations, welcome to hear from you. So as I said, this is the first webcast. We're going to focus on freight requirements for our pavilion exhibitors, but actually it's a lot wider than that. It's going to cover any sort of export queries and looking at customs requirements for going into Europe post Brexit. Today I am delighted to welcome Ashley Head, who is Director for International Services at EFI. So Ashley, if you want to turn on your webcam, we'll say hello. Hi, nice to see you, Ashley.
Hi, Pamela.
Thank you for joining us. So the webcast, we're going to have for a semi-informal chat and a little bit of information around what's happening freight-wise and customs. So it's been a very challenging year for everybody, but especially for live events. Obviously for the EIC, we haven't had any exhibitions for it'll be coming a full year, and obviously if that's impacting on no exhibitions, I'm sure it's impacted on your business heavily as well as a freight agent. EFI as a trusted freight agent for UK pavilions in the past, and we work closely with them. So we thought it's a great opportunity for Ashley to just give us an insight of what's happening. And also, I hear that you have taken the initiative to retrain some of your staff in the downtime that you've had from exhibitions to become HMRC approved custom agents. So perhaps you can just give us a little bit of an update on what's been happening in the last 6 to 12 months for you. That would be great.
Thank you, Pamela. Yes, it's been an interesting and challenging time. Like you, EFI is involved in international exhibitions all over the world. We're used to hopping and bopping about, and come March, everything ground to a halt. As you say, we looked around and realised fairly soon that this was going to be a long-term situation. And with the advent of the end of the transition period in January 21, we soon realised that one of the areas of our own expertise in shipping and logistics, the customs aspect, was going to be in high demand. So we applied to HMRC. We've enrolled our staff on courses. We've become very familiar with the current online customs system, which is known as Chief. And we've started to familiarise ourselves with some of the practices and processes that we can expect to enjoy in January when the UK in a customs way leaves the EU.
Great, excellent use of time and diversifying your skill sets as well. So so I guess going forward then you're gaining all this information and great to have someone to go to. So perhaps you want to just give us an idea over sort of the last, what you're finding, the key findings that you're coming up, any top tips that you have for exhibitors and exporters looking into post-Brexit Europe and kind of into January.
Yes, of course. Well, one of the key things to obviously realise is that from January the 1st, the UK will become an independent nation under customs, and will trade with the EU as it does any other country outside the EU currently. This means that goods moving between the UK and the EU and back again in the other direction will be under customs control. That means a customs entry will be made. It'll be electronically made, normally by a broker or by much bigger companies who'll have their own department. And the goods all the goods that move in and out will be recorded in that way. It'll mean that many of your members will no doubt have had experience of exporting to countries outside the EU, and the processes will be very similar in terms of the paperwork required, commercial invoice, HS codes for commodities, values for each commodity, and so on and so forth. So for anybody who's familiar, as I say, with exporting in any other part of the world, this won't come as a big surprise. Obviously, for a lot of companies who've never had to do any of this, specifically companies in the UK who are bringing in materials from the EU and have done to support their business, this is going to be quite a shock.
Absolutely.
Not only in terms of process, but also in terms of cost.
And I think that's one of the key questions. You know, we've always, especially with a UK consignment for any pavilion activities we're doing, that's one of the reasons that we use the likes of EFI, is because we can get that reduced cost and one consignment, know where it goes. So I think that is a worry and a concern for obviously I'm speaking on behalf of our exhibitors, but for the wider membership as well.
Indeed. So I'd like to, if it's okay with you, I'll just go through what some of the processes are likely to be in January. I say likely, there are a few I's dotted and T's to be crossed in the process, not least of which we're all very aware that there are ongoing discussions between the UK government and the EU to determine the final outcome of the relationship. And one of the key areas this will affect is import duty. VAT will be applied as from January the 1st. It will apply to imports, goods moving both ways. But as most companies, or all companies, will be registered for VAT, or most of them will be, that will be processed in the usual course of events through things like monthly VAT returns. But if duty is applied, that amount is paid and it's not refundable. So it does impact the cost of items, whether you're selling them to customers overseas or whether you're bringing them in to process yourselves for further sale. So some of those areas need to be determined. The other thing that's currently not quite resolved yet is the HMRC processing system. The current one is called Chief. There is a replacement for Chief that's due to come on stream on the 1st of January, would you believe? But actually, it's looking more likely that that's going to be deferred now, possibly until July. It makes sense, obviously, because if you're getting about, I think it's an expected 1 million additional customs entries required, you don't want to be putting in a new computer system just to handle that. So we'll see how that goes.
Great.
There is another area to think about as well, specifically when we're looking at Europe, which we are obviously with Brexit, is the transport and how that's going to be affected, the flow of transport, the flow of goods, and people are very concerned. Some of the people we're talking to are very concerned about the potential delay at borders. We've all seen some of the pictures on TV where they ran a test recently in France, where the French customs elected to stop and check every vehicle that came in, and it resulted in tailbacks of many miles going through Kent. So there's a couple of things that are going to be put into place. There are additional steps, if you like. So you've got your customs export processes, which you're doing through your entries and your commercial invoice. But then when the transport's got the goods on board and it's ready to go to the port, it will then the haulier will then either have to enter into the KAP, which is the Kent Access Protocol, where you're going to go online as a haulier and say, I've got this load, I've got all the customs documents, I'm ready to go. The system will check that because it will be connected to the HMRC system, and it will green light that haulier to then go on to the port. And this is expected to take place on the borders of Kent for the main crossings at Felixstowe and Dover. There is a secondary system called GVMS, which is Goods Vehicle Movement Service. That's slightly more complex. It's a more complex version. It applies to all ports and all areas of the UK. And that system will take a similar amount of information from the haulier, but it will also transmit that information to destination customs, who will also in turn send back an OK signal, an OK to ship. In many respects, it's going to be a bit like when you're sending a sea freight shipment now to the United States. You have to pre-register that customs information before the goods go to the port here, before they get on the ship, and then the US customs will verify that, and then you can deliver to the port. So that's the intention, and again, that's not going to be on stream right away.
So what's obviously the impact, you know, if we've got shows in the US, or we're shipping, or sea shipping or air freighting, we have to do that quite a bit in advance of when we have any shows in Europe. What sort of delay do you think that we're looking at so specifically for us, it's for any of our exhibitors, but it's again the same for any exports. What sort of timelines are we looking at compared to what we currently have?
Yeah, it's going to be, it's quite hard to let me look into my crystal ball. It's quite hard to determine exactly how long, but there will be delays, and we will be factoring that in. And that's for people like me. We need to monitor the situation. We need to advise yourself and your members. We need to give you guidance, and we need to say, well, okay, look, if we're shipping to France or the Netherlands or Germany for an exhibition, we might want to consider, 3 days earlier departure than we had previously been working on.
So it's
not
huge, not huge. You're not talking about weeks.
No,
extensions.
definitely
it's,
not.
Matter of within a week, 3 to 4 days, perhaps.
When we're talking about events, because we're talking about events and events returning later on in the year, so we're talking about the end of spring, summer, beginning of autumn 2021, we're talking about events starting up then, because events they're not going to be really active in the beginning of the year. All those bumps in the road that Boris talks about, a lot of those will be ironed out in January, February, March time, as we get to grips with new systems and everybody gets used to the processes. I think we can expect a little bit of congestion at the French border early on. That could become a lot of congestion if things aren't going well in the trade talks. But again, these things will flatten out as we go through into March and April time. So I think ultimately, for events, it's not such an issue. I think for exporters, which obviously many of your members are, and having to give information to clients and saying, I'll have this valve with you by X, they're going to have to mitigate some of those delays and some of those bumps.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. So any others that sort of covering the main elements? Is there anything else you think we should sort of highlight?
Well, I should also mention, because a lot of your members will be familiar with the ATA Carnet system. An ATA Carnet effectively is a passport for your freight. It's where you've got display goods and they're going to a country, and then they're going to be displayed, and then they're going to come back to the UK. So in order to avoid having to pay temporary export, temporary import charges and duties and things like that, we use a carnet. And so there are many, many countries around the world who are signatories to the Carnet Convention. The UK is one. Many of the European countries are also signatories. So from January the 1st, ATA carnets will be able to be used for display shipments going in and out of the EU. So, for example, Offshore Europe is an exhibition in the UK. There's going to be an awful lot of companies coming from Europe. Some of your members may even be having shipments coming from other shows in Europe. And the ATA Carnet system is a streamlined way of moving goods that are not going to remain in the country in and out through customs. What's not been determined quite yet is whether the EU will be considered as a single entity for a carnet, and the reason why that matters is you need to have a transit voucher for each border that you cross in and out of different countries. So if you were going to 6 different countries, you'd have 6 different import export vouchers, but also transit vouchers in between. As it stands, the EU would be treated as a single block under customs. But as I was mentioning, the Carnet Convention, the EU is not a country and isn't a signatory to the Carnet Convention. So we're still waiting on clarification as to whether, if you're going to Italy, for example, once you've crossed into France, you're in Europe and therefore that's it, you're done. Or do you
Yeah.
then subsequently have to show paperwork as you go across each border?
Okay.
There's quite a lot to do.
Absolutely. And what about third-party countries?
Yeah, well,
Does that
exactly.
impact on?
Places like Norway, for
Exactly.
example. Well, that's something else we need to think about, because obviously we have a relationship currently with Norway, which is based on our membership of the EU, and the EU has a deal, has a trade deal, but it also has things like working deals and freedom of movement deals related to those deals. They will have to be renegotiated individually by the UK. Now, it could well be that a lot of those countries elect to agree to extend that current trade situation with Europe to the UK. That would be a very useful and helpful development.
Absolutely.
And it very much depends on how that affects their relationship with the UK. So if Norway turned around to the UK and said, we'll trade with you exactly the same way as we're trading with the EU could say, well, actually, that's not very helpful, because all you're doing is making it easy for our members to leave the union.
Yeah.
So all that has to shake down. There's a lot to come through. The good news, as I say, on the event side, is that we have a little bit of time for that to shake down. But again, for exporters, again, the other thing that we have to consider is all those trade deals which we currently enjoy through our EU membership will have to be separately negotiated.
Renegotiated. So
Your
yeah, so
goods
the
might
next,
be under, sorry.
no, I was just going to say obviously the next 3 weeks or so are vital for then the impact onto how everything else will go. So deal or no deal, we wait and see.
Exactly.
Great. And we had a discussion before just talking about the services that you're currently providing, the newsletters and also a consultancy. So maybe do you want to give us a little bit more information about that, and also how our exhibitors and our members can get in touch with you and get a bit more information and go into more detail specific to their companies.
Yeah, I'll be delighted to. Thanks for that. Part of the process that we've undergone with HMRC is to become a recommended broker. So what they're doing is sending companies who are going, oh my gosh, it's December, what are we going to do next month? They're sending them to us, basically. It's like a rugby pass. So here you go and talk to those guys, because we're far too busy trying to set up these new systems. Same with Biffa, they're doing the same thing. So we've created, part of our website now is a registration page. There are no fees. We don't charge anybody for consulting with us. The idea is that hopefully, if you don't currently have a designated customs broker, and that's one of the things that you can do even before January, is to sign up with a customs broker and have them handle all of your customs processes to ensure that actually come HMRC audit time, everything's organised and done correctly. We don't charge for this stage. This is a consultancy. We will listen to individual companies with their concerns. They can talk to us about their specific requirements and also their product. We can have a look at the customs tariff. We can see if they're likely, if there are going to be duties, what those rates of duties might be, and address any concerns they might have about attending events and having, co-sharers, stand sharers, and people like that get involved. How's that going to work? So we're having those now. We're having those meetings now.
Great.
We ask that everybody register. They just give us 4 pieces of information, and then they will be added to our mailing list. They'll get our regular newsletter called Changing Times that updates all these things we've talked about as they change and develop. We package them all together and pop them in an email and send them around. Okay. But they can also book one-on-one online with our team as well to go through their concerns.
Brilliant. So for anyone that's wanting to do that, the URL link is at the bottom of the slide here. So it's the efilogistics.com/ registration. So I would recommend doing that, because as Ashley said, it's initially free of charge, and also you get included in all the updates coming your way. So great service. Thank you for that. I have another question, I suppose related to customs, but also just say, what about COVID? How is it? We're seeing impact obviously on with Brexit, but then we've got a double whammy. We've got COVID on top of that. What are you seeing in terms of restrictions or adapting for the current COVID world, and what you foresee in the next sort of 6 months time?
Yeah, it's
That
a very
glass
good
ball
point.
again.
Very good point, Pamela. But it's actually happening now. For example, one example of this is air freight. Air freight capacity has shrunk. As many people will no doubt know, when they've flown overseas, you see all the cargo going into the hold of the aircraft, because passenger aircraft carry a lot of freight. Those passenger aircraft are not flying, or they're flying in vastly reduced numbers. So the capacity for
Right.
cargo has dropped. As an example, we have an export this week that's going to Japan, and the lead time for the airline on air freight to Japan is 3 weeks. Ordinarily, you could expect something to move within 48 hours to 72 hours, airport to airport, but that's actually no longer the case, just purely because there are less aircraft in the sky. We've talked about the effects of Brexit on overland transport, and how that might affect over in Felixstowe. But Felixstowe, the port, the container port, is currently undergoing huge congestion problems. And that's before we've left the transition period. And Southampton are reporting similar problems now. You can throw into that little bundle of joy the movement of the vaccine. We've all seen the news images, and hallelujah, it's lovely to see that. And the
Arrived.
first
It's
shot
6
was
a.m.
given this morning.
Yeah, 6 a.m.
It's
this morning.
certainly,
So just in case anyone didn't notice at the beginning, and also just to make sure that, obviously things will be changing the next couple of months. We are recording this on the Tuesday, the 8th of December. So things obviously will change, but great news that the first vaccine was admitted this morning. So great. But yes, let's see.
it's terrific.
See the light at the end of
So,
the tunnel is actually there.
so there's billions of vaccine shots that are moving around, many of them at minus 80 degrees temperature, special transport required. They're taking up air freight capacity. Just at this moment in time, we're also approaching Christmas, that's thrown another grenade in, because at Christmas time, all the capacities for sea freight and air freight start to get used up as well. So it's going to be fluid. It's going to be a changing picture. It's something we will keep our eyes very closely on, because we do have to advise yourselves. We have to advise the show organisers that we work for as well. We need to flag any changes and any delays early, so that people have a chance to get on top of it. With 32 years, we've never missed a show. Certainly don't want to miss one now. Albeit there being mitigating circumstances, we want to stay on top of it, and we want to make sure we get people's stuff where it needs to be.
Absolutely. And I guess for me then, a takeaway from the information you've given is everything needs to happen earlier. Make sure you've got, speak to yourself and your team at EFI. Make sure that you know what you're doing in terms of having the customs agents and requirements that side, and also just factor in additional time for everything that you're looking to export or shipping out to the shows that, touch wood, will be back exhibiting that in person in the not too distant future. So,
Yeah,
anything else?
exactly.
What would be your top tip, your number one piece of advice for companies going
Right. So
forward?
I'm going to be teaching to a lot of people who are already very familiar with these processes, but in case not, absolutely, if you haven't got one, apply for an EORI number with HMRC. That is an exporters and importers reference number. It's like your VAT number, it's slightly different. It's got some extra zeros on the end. But once you've got that, it means you are in the HMRC system. Whatever computer system they're running at the time, you'll be in there, so that when you do have goods arriving for your company, or you do want to export something, that won't be a delay. because you're already
Okay.
in there, you're already approved for as an importer. That's the number one thing you can do. If you're importing goods, then I'd also add to that perhaps duty and VAT deferment number. You can apply again to HMRC. It's a very simple process. You just say to them, I want to be able to defer payment of duty and tax when goods arrive. It means the goods move through the system without waiting for your payment, because you've got a
Okay.
deferment account and it will come out of that. And
And is that
those two things will help.
for those two requirements? Can companies come via yourself, or can they just go direct to HMRC?
They'll go
What's
direct
the
to
easiest way?
HMRC, and
Okay.
they can, if they just Google HMRC EORI or HMRC VAT duty deferment, either of those. HMRC actually have an extremely good web-based service. The application process is very straightforward. It'll just be information about your company, and the process normally only takes 2 to 3 days to complete. Many
Great.
EIC members are going to have an EORI. They'll be registered because they're already
Alrighty.
exporting all over the world.
Yeah.
But if you don't, get that done and you've taken a step forward.
Perfect. Great. Well, I think kind of we've covered quite a bit of information just now, and also hopefully signposting companies in the right place to go to speak to yourself and your team, should they have any questions. So I guess I'd just like to say thank you so much for your time today, and great to see you again. And we definitely hope that we're going to be working with you for actual live exhibitions again in the near future. So just for everyone who's watching, 2021, we are optimistic. We are looking forward, and the EIC are planning for a whole list of exhibitions. So I've just highlighted them here on the slide. Our next one is a hybrid. It's a Japan Wind Expo Japan. It's actually still going to be a hybrid because it's still March time, so a little bit of doubt there. But then the exhibitions are starting to come together as in-person shows, and we're incredibly excited about that. I've highlighted the ones that obviously are Europe related or likely to have movement for goods within Europe and out of the UK. So just to flag those, and obviously speak to EFI for more information, make sure you have everything in place. As part of the UK pavilions, we will obviously flag the deadlines to you and ensure that you're working to those deadlines. Any other information that you want on UK pavilions based on the shows that I was just showing you there, please get in touch with myself or Camilla Chu, who's the colleague head of overseas events. But the final thing is we want to keep running these Meet the Experts. It's been great to speak to Ashley and get his view on what's happening in terms of customs requirements, but there's a lot of uncertainty out there with exhibitions. So we're going to keep doing this with all of our key suppliers and make sure that you're comfortable and you're getting the best return on investment and getting back out there, getting your exposure that you need and you've been missing for the last year. So please let us know who else you would like to hear from, and do that by emailing us at overseasevents@theic.com. So I guess I'd just like to say thank you again, Ashley, and thank you to everybody who has logged in to listen to this webinar. EIC membership, if you're not already a member, then there's also the opportunity for you to find out a little bit more about what we do. This is just one very tiny part of what the EIC can offer to energy companies. So please do get in touch. And as this is the 8th of December, I'm going to say Merry Christmas. It's not too early for that, is it? Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and let's cross our fingers for January for a Brexit deal in 2021. Great. Thanks, Ashley. Take care.
Cheers. Thank you, bye.
Bye.